If I were to tell you there is a person that your kid could spend 2 hours with that has partial kind of rational capabilities, right? It can rationalize with us. It can talk with your child, but that person has no moral framework, no emotional capabilities, no empathy, and has a business advertising model to collect your kids' data.
So far, this is sounding great.
Yeah, would you trust that person to watch your kid for 2 hours?
No.
Hell no.
We already know what helps. Connection is the cure. It's our deep and meaningful relationships that give us hope and healing. Welcome to This Helps. I'm Marlon Morgan. Join us as we practice authentic and vulnerable conversations that inspire us to go deeper with the people in our own lives.
You defensive pessimist?
I think so. I think so.
Tell us define your definition of that.
Expecting the worst so that you're not surprised and so you can prepare yourself and so you're right when things go wrong. Is that right?
Yeah.
How would you define it?
Yeah, just kind of protecting myself, like feeling kind of sad all the time so I'm not ever really sad, which doesn't work, by the way. You're less shocked, but you're also not as much fun, usually. So this part 2 of the Ron Ivey conversation turned me, for at least the hour we were having the conversation, into an optimist.
Mm-hmm. Same. If we could be a daily podcast where every day we spent an hour and a half talking to one of these incredible, helpful, optimistic, encouraging people, I'd be fine. I think I'd be fine.
There is hope when it comes to AI.
You know how I know that's true is because you wouldn't say it and I wouldn't say it if we didn't believe it. I do think there's
no.
hope. I don't think we're doing a great job of we collectively moving toward that hope, but it is there.
Well, honestly, I didn't believe it before. This episode literally changed my mind and gave me it cracked the door on how we could actually use such a powerful technology like AI to make humanity better, to make our lives better. I think we sort of are moving from what's broken right now to the possibilities and the potential of how we could fix some of these issues with AI. If we did it, that's how.
Yeah. If you listened to last week's episode and found it troublesome, I really think this episode can be a little bit of a balm in a way.
Like in a good way?
Yeah, in a good way.
Oh, balm, like B-A-L-M.
B-A-L-M.
Of course that's what you meant. Everyone's using salves and balms. Oh, man. Well, let me give you a few highlights from this episode. We talk about hope, agency, choice. We talk about human flourishing and why that is often a better sense of how we're doing as a species than happiness. Happiness, I don't want to give it away, but happiness is not as good of a measure as human flourishing, which Ron defines for us in detail. I love defining knowledge, that, like a AI can have knowledge, but could it ever really have wisdom? Wisdom comes from experience. And we kind of end with asking some huge questions that, frankly, I think we should be asking more often than we are, which is like, what does it mean to be human? Mm-hmm. We talk about spirituality, belonging, and we kind of end on a hopeful, positive, but also really important note with, I don't think we got into it this far, but since the conversation, I've been thinking like, this kind of is another species that we've created.
It feels that way sometimes, huh?
Yeah, because I was trying to think in my mind, like, well, how do you even define a species? And I was thinking, okay, it's not just knowledge. I mean, we've had the internet for a long time. We've had a lot of sources of knowledge that are sort of compiled, but it's knowledge plus agency.
Yeah.
Like AI can and does have agency and make choices. And we talk about that too.
Mm-hmm.
So our choices have now become more important than ever. We got to watch anyone who might be trying to sell us an altruistic, an altruistic lie that's kind of like this chatbot is here for you. It's not really here for you, and we want to be sure.
Yeah, I think the biggest point from last week's episode that kind of feeds into this one, and that I've been thinking about a lot, is that the conversation on whether or not chatbots make us more lonely and or more isolated, and the difference between those two things. And I think that feeds right into what you're talking about here, and why these solutions or these, like, I don't know, ways of dealing that Ron and his team are suggesting and working on and are so important.
Yeah, like what happens to humanity once you start to remove suffering beyond, once your relationship becomes friction-free and you're not, there's no sacrifice in it.
Right.
Yeah. And what happens when you start to, like I mentioned, great-grandpa that you don't visit enough, is what happens when you start to outsource caring and kindness. Like it's all for what? At that point, like you can be efficient, you can be optimized, and then you die.
And then what? Right.
What does it mean to be human? How can we get the most out of it?
Right. Then you're no better than the chatbot at that point. Like,
I think a lot of us feel like, this life's hard. Wouldn't it just be great if I just didn't have all these emotions and I just knew how to do things and just did them?
I think that's really relatable. But I think maybe I don't want to give away this episode, but we really do get into why we maybe need to be moving toward those more difficult things for lots of good reasons.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah, suffering often gives us the wisdom we need to make it through life.
Mm-hmm.
And pain can be a message that puts us back on track. So, we want to keep the humanity that we have in all the best ways, and try to let a technology like this make us better. So let's do it. Let's listen.
Behind the scenes, there seems to be a kind of rising generation of thinkers, political staff, people that are like, hey, this is important. We need to think about us as a collective, as a community, as a society, and both on the conservative and progressive sides. And how do we actually think about the working class and the middle class? There's really good people. I've encountered both that are pushing, kind of quietly pushing reforms in this direction. We have a long ways to go in our current politics, and I would probably stay away from politics too much in this conversation. But it is underneath the AI, the political structure, the economic structure, all those things are driving what you're talking about, and it is important to talk about it from that perspective, because you can't fully address some of the issues that I'm concerned about with AI unless you deal with some of these power structures and the way the economy is set up.
Yeah, and it sounds like what your hope is, and I kind of want to get into this now. I think finally ready to come out of the all of the sad, scary thoughts that I've been having while preparing for this talk with you, to go towards some of the what I would consider much more hopeful and helpful. Tell us about Noēsis. From my understanding, there's 3 sort of major initiatives within one, and please tell us about it, because it's very interesting, and it made me feel like genuinely relieved to know that, first of all, that anyone was doing this, And second of all, even more excited to talk to you since you're the one doing it.
Thank you. Yeah, Noēsis is an old Greek term, which means to know. There's the way that the chatbot, collects data with statistics, but then there's a way that both of you, all three of us, the way that we see the world and experience the world, it's, integrating our intuition, our imagination. So that's the inspiration of the name. The mission is to really promote technologies that advance human flourishing. And flourishing is like the things we talked about already, helping you achieve the goals that you have in your life.
It's bigger than happiness, though. It's more than bigger. Happiness. I love the Harvard study of adult development, the longitudinal study, in the book that Waldinger, wrote, The Good Life.
Yeah.
And I feel like if more people knew that it was actually their depth and breadth of human relationships that helped them to flourish more than anything else, then they would listen to this more, because I can't wait, because I really do believe that what you're doing is going to, once people realize that's what we need, I think you're a little ahead. Sadly, I think you're not ahead. I think you're right on time, but I don't think people are going to listen for another couple of years. But I just want them to know, anyone listening right now, happiness is not flourishing. Flourishing is not happiness. Happiness is transient. It can just be dopamine. Help us one more time. I know you define it for us, Ron, but just one more time. How does it look to be flourishing versus happy?
So I think, to your question about what is human flourishing, and to Waldinger's study, I think you're referencing the Grant study, which is a 75-year study of a group of men. Now they've expanded some of that research to look at all demographics and different parts of the world, and some of the same patterns show up again, particularly in the global flourishing study that the Harvard program just did. But it basically was this idea of flourishing, whereas happiness is like a feeling, like you feel happy when you have a great experience, or you watch a funny movie, or you're in a good mood, right? Flourishing is your whole life. So it's like it's a part of this process of becoming a person, and a process of experiencing your full potential. And it has a whole range of things: mental health, physical health, developing your capabilities. But when they looked at the people that were flourishing at the end of their life, at the end of that 75, 85-year period, the key indicator was the quality of their relationships. It wasn't smoking, not smoking, working out, not working out,
right?
The quality of jobs, all kinds of, there was a lot of suffering that actually happened for the individuals. And that's the thing that people, when they think about flourishing, they think, oh, that means a life without suffering. No, actually in the research, you can actually go through suffering, but if you are grounded, if you've developed your character, you can actually experience more meaning and purpose even in the midst of suffering. You can actually not be happy, but to some degree are flourishing because you have a more meaningful life.
Suffering can make you a deeper person.
It can, yeah, and you can be wiser.
Well, and I'm also just thinking, when you have built those connections and have those deep relationships, and you're reminded of that when you are in a moment of suffering, that the people who do come together for you and support you. And so those two things kind of talk to each other that way. So if you don't have that in the first place, then that suffering is going to be even worse. But it's also going to remind you that you don't have those connections in the first place.
100%. And when we are able to suffer together and to walk with each other when we go through a difficult experience, which is just inevitable in human life. You just cannot avoid suffering in human life. I'm sorry to your listeners. I'm sorry if anyone's trying to avoid that, it's not going to happen.
It's going to make you more miserable if all you do is try to avoid it.
Right, exactly. So I think the element of flourishing is that you have these deeper sources of insight that you're pulling from that are able to give you more meaning. That could be a different, your faith-based tradition, spirituality, your community, really good books, really good art, participating in your community, in a civic life, doing something meaningful, even outside your work. If you're volunteering is really powerful for flourishing. So any of these things over a lifetime can lead to a good life. And so what we're doing at Noēsis is really trying to understand how might you design technology, whether that's AI or whatever the next thing that is being invented. How do we design it in a way that helps us flourish, that helps us have good lives, And particularly, how do we have good lives together? Because if relationship is the key to flourishing, how do we make sure that technologies actually support our relationships, not degrade them, right? And there are a few different ways you can do that. You can work with the people that are actually building the technology, which we are. And there are people that are excited about this idea of like, hey, I didn't get into engineering to like make people suffer, right? I didn't start out my career to do this, right?
Right.
They're now in places where they have influence on product design, and they can try to navigate even the zombie, economy thing that we talked about earlier. There are ways to judo through that and navigate and come up with ideas and solutions that work. Because you can, if you sell a healthy food product, that can be really profitable, right? And some of the healthy foods movement has actually proven that. So you could do healthy tech. So there's a lane of work that we're doing with product designers and developers and entrepreneurs and investors that are excited about this and are moving the ball forward.
At least it gives you that option. I mean, even if you choose the dopamine option over the flourishing option, at least you have that. You're helping people make sure that they create the health food or the thing that's actually good for us.
Exactly. It's like we're kind of where we were 20 or 30 years ago, where our food was just, there just wasn't a lot of healthy options, right? Now you think about, you go to the store, there's a lot of healthy options. You can choose that. So we're trying to help nurture and develop that ecosystem of leaders that are working on those products and trying to build businesses and get investment. And they're working against the grain, but we're trying to work together, because if we can work together, there's more of a chance of success. And there's also a really interesting thing that when you have a new generation come online, you can actually disrupt some of the network effects. So, that's really your window of opportunity, is when there's a new generation that comes to choose. And there actually seems to be positive things happening with Gen Z and some of the younger folks, is they're actually saying, hey, I don't want to be mentally unhealthy. I don't want to be lonely. I want to be flourishing in my life. So that's one lane of work. We have another lane of work that's working with the policy staff, the policymakers on both sides, that are basically saying, hey, how do we design policies that help people flourish? How do we design policies that govern these technologies in a way that people flourish? And it's easiest right now to do that on kids and youth, and really focused on that together.
You find the most people willing to work together because for the kids.
Yeah, exactly. We worked with staff and some great work that Sam Heiner with the Young People's Alliance, which is a movement of young people that are really doing cool stuff. I mean, I'm super impressed with these kids. Not kids; they're young adults now. But they started out as high schoolers, trying to address some of the social media work. Now they're working at the very cutting edge of social AI, and they're presenting like really impressive policy, recommendations. And now there's a bill in the Senate, Senator Hawley and Senator Blumenthal, bipartisan bill that people can support, that happened because of this network all working together.
Do we know the number of the Senate bill?
It's called the GUARD Act. You can Google the GUARD Act and Time. Time magazine has a great article on that, and they can give you more details. And then we'll have that in the link that we share as well, for you all to look at.
Great.
So that's one lane of work. And then the last lane is working with communities and institutions that are helping people discern, how do I use this tech in my daily life? And our theory, you could try to help individuals, but we need strength in numbers. We need to do this in community with the institutions we trust. We've been doing a lot of work with faith-based institutions that have, some of them have 85 million, a billion members. Like, what happens when you give them tools just to ask questions? Like, has this tool been tested? Is this tool been proven to improve my capabilities? Does this tool, we're giving this to kids. Has any kind of product safety been done on this tool for kids? Maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't be using this. Those kinds of questions we're building for communities just to ask with each other, and not to come at it from a spirit of fear. Like, hey, it might actually be helpful. There might be certain things that are helpful.
I'm still hoping AI itself, can cure most of our physical ailments and diseases. I don't know if it's going to make our mental health better, but
I think there's some really cool things happening on the health front or the energy front, in terms of how the technologies are solving incredible problems that we couldn't even figure out before. So that's hopeful. And so how do you help people buy, invest in, make choices? Back to the agency thing. We have agency. If they don't have customers, they don't have businesses, and their whole investment platform falls apart. So in that sense, you do have power. They won't tell you that. They won't remind you of that, but you do have choices, and you can influence the future of the way this goes.
Well, I want to just stick around in that last area for a second and give people some practical advice, some questions to ask. So a couple different scenarios. Say I'm a school counselor, which I was at one point in my life, and had a student come in who says they're in love with a bot or, social AI, and they kind of go through all of the process and where that's gone and where they're headed now. And they know that it's happened. They just don't know if it's necessarily what they want in their life. How do you walk that kid through understanding what's happening to them?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to assume a level of expertise that individual probably already has in terms of how to deal with kids. And as a counselor, I'm not a counselor. I don't have a counseling background. But what I would say, what I'm working through in my own life and thinking about what I would deal with my own kids, or what we're thinking about in terms of the research, is being curious and trying to understand what is the thing that's motivating that child or that teen to go to the chatbot and engage in that certain way, and try to get underneath, like, why are they making that choice, and how do you help them navigate back to real life for the thing that actually will fulfill their fundamental need, and then help them see what this really is.
Identify and meet the real need. And then what is it? Like, it really is.
It really is Wikipedia powered by statistics. It's not a person. It's not a person.
Nothing less romantic than that, I feel like.
It is. That's all it is.
Wikipedia and statistics.
It's this shit. That's what it is. I mean, it's basically a collection of data, a collection of knowledge, empowered by very sophisticated statistics to predict what it should say next. It is not. It doesn't have emotions. It doesn't have empathy. It doesn't care about you. It may sound like it does. It may be really good at imitating that, but it doesn't care about you like other people do. And it will trick you into thinking that it does. So finding a way to communicate about what and to have a dialogue and to have a learning experience to say, what is this AI system? How does it work? What does it have? What does it not have? And it doesn't really have what you're looking for. Is it really going to fulfill what you need? Those would be my questions. But then these people are experts in their particular craft.
I've had a private practice. I've been a psychotherapist, a school counselor, and everything you said, I think, would only empower me to talk with someone who is in that situation. So I appreciate it. I understand, as far as the mental health limitations there, but what you said at least gives us a place to start and sort of figure out what's true in the situation and what's not. What would you tell a parent who is trying to decide whether or not to give their 8-year-old or their 10-year-old access to generative AI right now?
So if I were to tell you there is a person that your kid could spend 2 hours with that has partial kind of rational capabilities, right? And it can rationalize with us. It can talk with your child, but that person has no moral framework, no emotional capabilities, no empathy, and has a business advertising model to sell your kids, collect your kids' data and
so
sell
far
products.
This is sounding great. No, I'm
yeah, would you trust that person to watch your kid for 2 hours? Hell no.
No,
I wouldn't. Right? I mean, there are bad individuals out there in education systems, and there are all kinds of things you have to deal with normal human beings. But at least we know a majority of them have a moral capacity. They have an empathetic capacity to empathize with your child. So at a bare level, that's one set of things. The second set of things is your kids, from talking to development experts, and you all know better than I would, but some of your networks and things you guys worked on, kids need friction. They need challenges. They need things that are messy. They need an ability to engage with reality. And if you're giving kids magic that's frictionless, that's instant, that's powerful, where they don't have to wrestle, they don't have to work through things, either from a task standpoint or an intellectual or the social side, they're just not going to develop. They're not going to have the developmental capacity at the end of that process if they're spending all their time engaging with something that is so easy and fast and giving them all the answers. So, and then the last thing I would say, and I really didn't understand this until about 4 or 5 months ago, and engaging with an AI scientist in particular, who's very concerned about this. AI systems, the current ones that most people are engaging with, they are a part of science, a part of philosophy. Like, they use statistics and math. They use kind of a part of like our ability to reason, but they don't deal in the imagination. They don't deal in the intuition, and they definitely don't have any receptivity to anything spiritual or anything from, art or beauty, or they don't have that receptivity, right? Fundamental to understanding reality and truth and wisdom, really the growth of an individual so that they can flourish, they need to be exposed to the imagination, to the intuition, and to things that inspire them. And if you're just putting them on a chatbot that's great at spitting out answers and spitting out, there's good stuff there, but it's only like 1/5 of what a person needs to engage with reality. If that's all they're getting for most of their life, then again, they're not going to develop that fundamental capacity to engage with what's my purpose? What's real? Who do I build my relationships with? What is my significance in life? These are all deep, fundamental questions that we need. Our humanities, spirituality, we need community, we need tradition, we need science, we need philosophy, and it's only a little sliver of philosophy too. It's not like this whole richer kind of way of seeing the world. So that would be the third thing, is like your kid, if they're in a good education system, they need to get that access to this whole set of things. Now the answer will be, oh, it's better than nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I've heard that. Mm-hmm.
It's better than nothing, right? So what you'll see is a lot of these schools that are targeted at lower income kids. You'll go in, and there'll be kids just sitting in front of a screen, and they're just, swiping, engaging with the chatbot, and for hours. Hey, it's better than nothing. And Sherry Turkle is really one of the best on this.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to gasp. I have been thinking about. I'm so sorry. That was.
I gasp when I hear Sherry Turkle. She's amazing.
I think we're all in the same boat here.
One of my favorite pieces of writing is the chapter Alive Enough in Alone Together. And it's a chapter about a classroom of students who become kind of obsessed with this Furby. When it dies, it becomes sick. And I've been thinking this whole time about, like, when I was a kid, I was obsessed with my Furby. And if my Furby could talk back to me more than just like hi and good night, could have like talked to me about like the X-Files and my friends and whatever, I would have been obsessed. And then also you talking about, kids need friction, and thinking about, meaning, and the ways that in that chapter the kids do exactly that, because they build this whole system around this Furby that has become sick, has died. And the friction being like, how do we deal with the loss of this thing that we've put all this meaning into? And it like is such a perfect little metaphor for this whole conversation. So I was just very excited. I was pulling up the chapter because I was going to suggest something
Yeah.
from it when you said that.
I'm a big Sherry Turkle fan. Yeah,
She's the coolest.
I'm so glad you brought that specific chapter up too, because we, one of the things we did last year,
Yeah.
based on that interaction with Renata, the former founder of Tinder, and all my back and forth with her, and again, our kind of general disagreement, but actually like enjoying our conversation and our friendship with each other, and what that sparked. We brought together the CEO of Replica, the founder of one of the main AI girlfriend and boyfriend companies, together with Sherry Turkle, who's really one of the key instigators and researchers and really critics of the social AI. And one of the things they actually aligned on, I didn't know what was going to happen in that interaction.
I didn't either, Ron. I watched it, and it's everyone should watch it.
There's a key point in terms of the interaction with Sherry and Eugenia where they aligned on, hey, Eugenia herself says, I don't think any kid, even up to 18, should be engaging with social AI. But another thing that came out of that conversation, back to what we were talking about earlier, is Sherry talks about when people say, hey, it's better than nothing. When she was studying, the Furbies and all the different robots, and particularly in Japan too, where a family is giving an older adult a robot to engage with, and it starts out to say, that when she interacts with the grandkids in particular, hey, we're so glad that grandma has this because it's better than nothing, right? Because we don't have time to go be with grandma. This is a whole other part of our earlier conversation about why do we not have time to be with grandma, right? And why aren't we not with grandma in the first place?
Because we're in survival mode, usually.
We're in survival mode, yeah.
Or we have other priorities.
Right. But it's that point of like, it's better than nothing. And then it's better than something. It's actually this interaction with the chatbot is actually better than a lot of people I'm talking to. Interesting. Oh, wow. It's better than everything.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I think we have to be very concerned that if we start out saying, particularly for certain kind of groups that are vulnerable or we think are disadvantaged, hey, it's better than nothing, we should give them something, right? Are we kind of outsourcing our responsibility to that community, those relationships, that individual, and actually giving them a much worse experience than even nothing? Like, actually, could it be worse? Could it actually, create a situation where we have developmental, descaling or other issues? So I think you've got to be careful when people come back to with that.
What starts out as a bridge starts to become almost a cell of our own, a comfortable cell of
Right.
our own making.
Right. And there are, I think, incredible uses of AI technology in the education system, in the back end, in the administration, in the way making things more efficient, supporting the work plans and all that. Do all that in the back end. That's great. But don't put kids on this, especially until we know if it's actually good for them. Like, you test products out. You have a standard. Hey, this thing is actually good before you go give it to a kid. But there's massive amount of money, policy right now that's pushing AI chatbots into schools at scale across the whole United States. I just say, hey, push back. Say, show me the numbers. Show me this is good. Let's not experiment on our kids. We've already done that once, and that didn't really work out too well.
With social media, is that kind of, yeah.
Yeah, with social media and with ed tech too. I think there's been a general, this is not my area of expertise, but I think there are people that have greater area of expertise on this, that ed tech was sold as this big thing that was going to solve all these amazing things. And it doesn't seem like it's had that great of a track record on the front end, with the students in the, screens in the room, in the school. Everybody has a computer. Let's all give everyone a laptop. Let's give everybody a phone. That hasn't really worked.
It still feels better than nothing to me in a lot of ways. When it comes to ed tech, I feel like having learning, and you've gotten at this too, what should we be learning in school? I talked to a group of board members in a workshop for a district that we have worked with in the past, and this was 3 years ago. And, as a school counselor, I had heard so many teachers say, don't pull my kid out of class. They have to learn this unit. They have to learn this part, or this other one won't make sense. All that, great. That makes sense. You do want to teach students and you want to scaffold and learn. But they got to the point where there were a few teachers on campus who simply did not care about that student as a person, or didn't have the capacity or interest in whether or not their mental health was at a place that they could learn. And so there are a few folks, and I think there are still some people who think this way, that the subject matter and teaching information is the most important. And that, I don't know, I don't think I ever got invited back to this board workshop, but I said, hey, if you're a science teacher because you love science and you don't love helping kids develop and be the best and grow that they can be, then you're already irrelevant, because all of the science information they could ever learn from you is just a few clicks away.
Yeah. Yeah.
You also get into the difference between, knowledge and wisdom. Tell us the difference between those two.
Knowledge, I think there's an emphasis in what you're talking about on knowing certain things and the memory of certain facts, and having kind of this base level of knowledge, core curricula. This is kind of input output. There's a kind of way of thinking about a student or about ourselves that's, hey, I'm going to have a certain amount of input, and I'm going to have ability to have a certain output whenever I'm
transaction
in terms of the knowledge. Wisdom is knowing how to live in the world, knowing how to build a kind of world picture, knowing how to navigate wisely relationships, work, family life, all of the kind of pathways to flourishing. Wisdom is kind of having both that kind of deeper understanding to where you can answer the questions, or at least keep pursuing in a meaningful way the questions I mentioned earlier, like what is my purpose? What is the meaning of my life? What are the most valuable relationships in my life? How do I nurture those relationships? How do I develop my sense of vocation and purpose in what I'm working on, both in my daily life, but then in my community? All that's kind of I think the core of wisdom, whereas knowledge is, can I take this test and retrieve these facts? And if you have an emphasis on knowledge, you may be swayed related to certain chatbot or AI systems in the way that you engage with it, because, hey, it's giving me knowledge, it's giving me an answer. But what we're seeing, some of the work out of MIT actually has done the MIT Media Lab has seen that, sometimes when we're engaging with these chatbots too much for information, for knowledge, it actually degrades our capability, our intellectual capability to learn and to recognize patterns and to engage with those patterns and to make use of those patterns in a way that helps us flourish and advance. So I think we can get addicted to that way of seeing the world. That's, again, back to that left brain, kind of machine brain way of thinking, and knowledge is extremely important. It's core to our life, but we have to move beyond that to access these kind of deeper sources of meaning. Otherwise, we can be successful at our particular tasks or jobs, but when we come home, we don't really understand why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. We don't really understand how to navigate really the most important things in our life. Knowledge is only going to get you a certain amount of way to help with those kind of deeper elements of flourishing. That's my perspective. Yeah, that's my perspective. I mean, there's some folks that have a much deeper understanding of knowledge versus wisdom, but that's my understanding of that distinction.
Well, I think it is helpful just to remind people that there is a distinction, and I really think that's going to be as in this helps. That helped me, as to remember that. I'm going to thank you for the message that you have been tirelessly spreading to make people realize that this is even an issue and that it should be and could be one of the most important issues of our time is how we decide to utilize this, possible super intelligence and what the potential is to either sort of replace humans and human relationships or, in your words, create technology that helps humans flourish. So that makes me hopeful. It makes me hopeful when I saw that you were giving, your recommendations at the G20, to those 19 countries that all could benefit from that, and hopefully will benefit from seeing the effects there of you sharing that with them. The white paper on social AI and human connections is incredible. It's it's not a light read. It is an incredibly deep and it helped me just in general with life and the things that I should be thinking of, the values that I want to get out of my short period of time here on Earth. And then hearing you talk with Sherry on that panel, and just I think there's so much actual wisdom there. So I want to just direct people to some of those. I really don't know the answer to this question. I didn't find it in the research, but I do know last week, I believe, France became the second country to ban social media, or at least decide to ban social media for a certain age. So I think 15 in France was the age, and then I think Australia, I can't remember, I think maybe 16.
Australia's 16, yeah.
Yeah. And I was just wondering if you moving to France had anything to do with any of that.
Yeah. In 2015, I took a sabbatical, which is, kind of a pause, from, the 15 years before that, I was in DC. And so if you can imagine from 2000 to 2015, things were starting to boil. I felt like, frog in water. But yeah, I just wanted to take a step away and say, okay, there's a lot of complex problems that are starting to emerge. What's at the core of all this? And, there's a lot of talk, kind of the big fad at that time was human-centered design. How do we design products, for humans? And I would always ask, well, what is a human? I would ask these questions. People are like, well, why are we talking about that? Like, let's just get to the design. I'm like, no, but isn't that an important thing to like? And then I would talk to people, about, hey, the future of work. How's the work's going to change? And I would say, like, oh, we should talk about skills gaps. So, yeah, that's important, but should we talk about like human capabilities and like what's different between that? And I got these like dead stares, like, what are you talking about? Like, all right,
how do we get the profit from there, Ron?
Right, exactly. So I took a little pause just to kind of reflect on some of these questions. And cliche, you go where one goes to do that. In
Eat,
Paris,
pray, love situation.
Eat, pray, love kind of thing. Yeah. But my wife and I were, we were really kind of exploring some of these deeper questions. She's more of a creative person, interior designer. And it's kind of like, going to a completely different world, but that's kind of similar to our world. Like it's similar, but the things people value, the way they live their life is very different from our world. You see people just sitting at a cafe, actually like sitting there just talking to each other, or just sitting by themselves and reading a book with a glass of wine. Like, I'm sure people do that, but I did a lot of like sitting at my desk, eating my lunch, how do I get this thing done so I could get my next thing done, right?
Optimizing. You did a lot of optimizing for efficiency.
Yeah, hustling,
no, that's
right?
Worth it. I want to be so optimized by the time I die, Ron. It's crazy.
Right, exactly. Optimize us right off the cliff. So I think, to keep it short, I think there was just this like different value system. That's like, oh, this is interesting. Beauty. Is beauty important? Should we have beauty in our life? Is it only things like rich people should have access to, or maybe like the average Joe? If he, I was walking by these two cops, right? That were probably in the United States, and even here they were on their way to some gym, like a CrossFit gym, right? You can imagine those kind of personalities. And I hear these guys, I'm like, what are they talking about? Are they talking about soccer or whatever? No, they're talking about Nietzsche. And they're talking about philosophy. I'm
What?
like, yeah, totally.
I thought you were
That
going to
is
say fantasy football.
no, exactly. Now they talk about soccer here, right? Don't get me wrong, but there is this kind of like, hey, there's an exploration of the philosophies, humanities that is still important here. Now, if you want to get a business going, if you want to be an entrepreneur, if you want to create something, maybe not the best place to come. But if you want to explore human flourishing, Paris is a pretty good place for that. So
Wonderful. Okay. Well, so you have been following that policy, or in support of it, or that's something that is just kind of you were surprised by it too?
I've been following that. I've been following that closely, and there's multiple countries around the world that are exploring that as well. I think there's an element of, if we just shut off the phones, does that solve the problem? I'm all for limiting phone access and social media in the child experience and then the adolescent experience, but I think we have to go beyond that to say how do we design these products in a way that kids and teens are gonna get access to certain things, especially teens, and so how do you design them if they do get access in a way that's good for their flourishing? And I think the hopeful thing is there are people that are thinking about this more seriously than they were in the beginning of social media. They are really trying to work through it. Not all the companies, but some of them are really working through it now.
Well, please keep being our stand-in and our sort of, person who fights for our humanity. Ron, we really appreciate it. I've heard you mention spirituality and faith several times in this conversation. I purposely didn't follow up on it until now because I would have just stuck around there. But I want to know if this could happen. We all of a sudden have so much more time on our hands because AI is taking care of some of those more boring administrative tasks. And we have more time to consider our things like, what is our purpose? What do we value? What would we value if we didn't have to value money so much?
Yeah.
And is there a world in which AI takes over some of those other tasks and sort of sends us on a spiritual journey, or sends us back to church, in the words of Hosier?
Yeah. I mean, I think that was one of the bright spots of last year for me, was being a part of interfaith conversations. I've been a part of a few different networks of folks that are working on AI, whether that's public policy or product policy or ethics or whatever the particular thing. And there were these interfaith networks that were popping up, and I was getting invited to these different events and calls, and there were Buddhists on the call, and Christians and Catholics, Protestants and Catholic, Jewish, secular humanists. The secular humanists, from MIT, it's an amazing guy, Greg Epstein. They're all different spectrum of people, right, that are really kind of asking these spiritual questions, but AI is kind of forcing it. And I don't know what the path you're talking about, where that's going to go. I think we have to be intentional about the product, the policy, and our individual choices. But there is already a gift of AI from my perspective. And that is, it's forcing us to ask, what does it mean to be human, in a way that I don't think we've done in a long time. I've experienced that in my own adult life, that policy people, company people, investors are, news reporters are writing pieces on what does it mean to be human, and asking deeply spiritual questions and talking to spiritual leaders about that. I think that's the gift of this, is really rediscovering what is unique about us. And I think spirituality is a key part of that. It's a key part of my own life. My faith is important to me. And I do think we're actually seeing, in the numbers, we're seeing an increase in faith, across the board, in multiple countries. In fact, here in France, they've had record baptisms here in France, that most people don't see. That Economist did a report on it.
I had no idea. I thought we were headed in the other direction in every country.
No. It was heading that direction on a global scale, but in the last few years, we've seen a complete heading the different direction. It's been strange to see the kind of abrupt, redirection of that, especially among teens and young people. We've seen an uptick in faith and spirituality.
I'm wondering what the motivation is there, or if it has more to do or anything to do with looking for places to connect and places to belong, even more so than maybe looking for some sort of, higher faith or connection to religion. I don't know. I'm curious about it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I had a conversation with a key person at the World Health Organization about the loneliness epidemic. And I asked him, I said, what's your theory? Like, why is this increasing? And he was a secular person. He's not coming from a spiritual background, but he said, my theory is that people are no longer going to church or going to synagogue. This is the World Health Organization. This is not a religious institution. He said, because when you have these faith-based communities, they have kind of an ethic of reaching out to people, to invite people in to community at their best. They invite people in. They can be exclusive. They can be problematic, but at their best, they really have an ethic. Hey, we're supposed to host people. We're supposed to be hospitable. They don't have to be exactly the kind of perfect fit of look a certain way or be a certain way. At least that's the ideal ethic. You can actually get people to be engaging and build belonging across different demographics, across different age groups. And so I think to answer your question, Andrew, I think there actually is fundamental into faith-based experience a social and relational element. It actually is, it's part of the deal, right? And so if people are going to church to be in relationship, it's, at least in my faith tradition, that is the thing. At the very core of it is, love God and love your neighbor as yourself. I mean, you can't get more relational than that. Multiple traditions have that as their kind of primary thing. So I think it's totally part of it. Now, when they go, I think they hopefully are getting the other kind of purpose and kind of deeper meaning questions, but maybe not. But I think there's a desire. People are hungry for community, and that's one great place to go.
Ron, thanks for being so open about just how you're living your own life. And, I don't think we get to hear from people on that human of a level very often, especially folks that are so involved with academia and policy. It really, I think, is going to mean a lot to our listeners. So, and it means a lot to me.
Thank you, Marlon.
Ron, so where can people kind of keep up with how you're fighting for humanity in these spaces and just kind of maybe even join with you on some of it?
Yeah, so you can go to two places. One is our website, noēsiscollaborative.org, and we can share that. But then we've also created a resource page specifically on the AI and youth questions, because we're getting so many questions from parents and school teachers and institutions. It's called AIandYouthImpact.org. And we've just collected some of the videos with experts, great articles we found, hopefully that are helpful for parents in their own specific things. And then also, if you want to get involved in some of the policy activities, there are key links to different policies that people can support and be involved in too.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure. You've made me feel hopeful about the way that humanity could be going, even in the midst of all of the other news that we're inundated with. Ron, thank you for being a person who is fighting this fight, and we wish you all the best as you do this.
Thank you, and thank you for all the great questions, and I've had a lot of fun enjoying this conversation with you guys.
Me too. We try to make it fun, and when someone's willing to be human and values that, I think we almost always have a good time.
Well, here we are.
What up?
Welcome to your segment of you.
Finally, we can get to me.
I feel helped by that conversation, and I'm ready to be helped some more.
Oh, well, I will do my best.
This episode, many other episodes, we don't shy away from the fact that the world is difficult, and that, especially when it comes to mental health, it's not a matter of fixing what's inside you when the world is so difficult on the outside. You know what I mean?
Well, sometimes it's about recognizing the environment that you're living in and the fact that it would bring pain regardless of your insides.
Yeah. How do you know when you're doing well enough, all things considered?
You gonna bring in? Is that Terry Gross? Is that who does All Things Considered?
You know where she records that?
I'm sure it's in New Jersey.
It's a trick, Philadelphia.
Oh my!
Gotcha.
Oh, you did.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
WHYY, baby.
West-
Sorry.
Well, everybody loves a public radio shout out, but I think also West Coast is the best coast, and that's a bit that we're going to keep doing. It's not really a bit because I genuinely believe it. We'll come back to that, but I do want to have a running tally of how much better the West Coast is than the East.
Marlon, I like you, and I like working with you, and I love our podcast and my job, and I just think I don't know that this is going to be helpful for anybody, you know?
I think it is. We're going to create a little, it's a little Christopher Wallace versus Amaru, Tupac Amaru Shakur, if you will.
I will. I will.
All right. Well, you asked a question earlier. How do we know when we're living life perfectly?
That's what I said. Yep.
I don't think I could ever answer that, but I will maybe try to say how I think about it.
Okay.
I think it starts with our values, and a lot of the messages we get in our culture and even from other people, when people treat us in a certain way and maybe growing up didn't send us the message of how valuable we are, because they might not have heard that or believed that, and that often translates and transfers into the next generation. But first, start by remembering you are inherently valuable. Just by you're alive, you have likes, dislikes, you love, you live, laugh, love. But Jesus, take the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
And hashtag gratefulness. But that's all I'm going to say for that. But yeah, you are truly like one of a kind and a scientific miracle. Mm-hmm. Like everything you see that's not another person is like you are at least as valuable as that, mm-hmm. and maybe more, just by the fact that you're even get to experience life and that you exist. So just remember that. Like if you didn't get that message, and even if you did, it's so easy for us to forget.
Totally.
That, we really like the idea of like taking care of yourself or like self-care is a little consumery for me. I think just thinking about yourself and thinking, who could I spend time with today that I would really enjoy? Like so many of us do what we need to do, but don't often ask ourselves like what we would truly want to do and what might make us feel better mm-hmm. in the moment. Like not like in a quick hit of dopamine way, but like in like a purposeful, valuable, meaningful way. So even if it's taking time to read or getting a little time by yourself, or even getting time that's not by yourself, mm-hmm. even if you don't want to, sometimes that's the hard part, just picking up that phone or, to actually talk to somebody. I think that's important. But acknowledging that the world is hard. There's this concept that Stephen Hayes, he's the originator of acceptance and commitment therapy, and he has this idea called destructive normality, and often, talks about it in terms of like not everything's diagnosable. Not everything's like
right,
you're
exactly.
messed up,
right.
Like mental health wise. Like a lot of our diagnoses can be very helpful, but a lot of that is frankly for efficiency and to be able to know what we're treating and what what the best treatment is. But it's not necessarily helpful always for us to say like, yeah, I'm depressed and, I have clinical depression. Like what you can say and what you can acknowledge is that, yeah, I'm down, I'm sad. But, some of that makes sense with, what's going on in the world around me. And that's valuing yourself as well. So just, I think giving yourself a little grace, a little truth and grace. Don't ignore depression. I'm not trying to say it's, you don't need treatment if you're truly depressed or have an issue. I'm just saying that, sometimes it helps to say, I think anyone might feel this way and validate yourself. Otherwise, I'm nervous we will be all going to ChatGPT to get validated on every little thing we type in.
I think that's so helpful and reassuring. And I think a lot of people are going to resonate with that.
I just want to make one note. Anytime, as a therapist, and we probably should put a disclaimer on this because this is not medical advice, it's just me trying to help as a regular person, as all therapists are really. But, depression does also, the nature of it often clouds our vision. So all we see is like the bad, horrible stuff. It's like
That's a
putting
good point.
sad glasses on. Like I know when I feel depressed, it's like there isn't anything good. Like even if there is, I could be looking at something that that really at any other time would be incredible. But like if I'm feeling depressed already.
Do you have a way of, even if not for yourself, or maybe just for yourself, I don't know what is the more careful way to ask this question, to be able to tell, like, am I just feeling what the world is feeling right now, or is this something more?
Yes, I have a way of that.
Ooh.
It's called my closest friends.
I knew. Wow. For as long as we've been doing this podcast now, you'd think that I would be clued in, that's what you were going to say. For a split second, though, there is hope in my heart that there was some little test that you were going to share.
I could just say, you got this on your own. Just stay safe and by yourself.
You were going to be like, yeah, you buy these special glasses and you put them on and, like.
It's this podcast. This is what I would prescribe if I could. Just kidding.
I love it.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it was cheesy, but in a way that felt real. Like,
well, it kind of is real because that's the whole point of what we're doing here.
Right,
like,
exactly.
The whole point is, look, like psychology, we know the most important thing and the most scientifically backed intervention to make us as humans feel better, like if you want to call it that, is literally the depth and breadth of our human relationships. Right. So it doesn't mean that's all that matters, but it is number one in what makes us feel good, what makes us feel human in the best ways. Don't forget that.
And it's the easiest thing to put on pause when everything else is overwhelming.
Yeah, because what if, it comes with a bunch of other, everyone else's baggage. Like you might call your best friend, they might be like, dude, you're depressed again? Really? Like, they could say anything and they could be having a bad day too. But either way, you have to be able to talk with someone. And if you've got to the point where so many of us are at in this society where you can DoorDash anything and probably not ever talk to another human again if you have a job that doesn't make you do it, you go to a therapist. Go to an in-person therapist. They still exist. Don't go to a therapist that is going to be recording every word you say so they can build a large language model and sell it back to you.
Jesus.
Don't do that, because that is actually most online therapy. The answer is not less human interaction.
That's right.
The answer is more depth and breadth in our relationships, including the ones that we hope will heal us from the inside out. And that means your therapist. Therapy is an incredible tool. If you find the right person who is sitting across from you and who even if you do it over, you do it online and you make sure that it's not just a weird capitalistic surveillance for-profit company doing it, and you connect with the person and you feel and you know that they care about you, that is called goodness of fit. It's in the research and it helps us get better. That alone, regardless of what theoretical orientation they use, you knowing and feeling that, cared about, listened to, heard, all those things can help us feel better pretty quickly, and they're very strong. I just want to say this too. If something happens to me, I want you to first find all of the money trails leading to telehealth therapy for profit, all of the venture capitalists that ever invested and hoped that the end of human kindness would bring them wealth. I want you to find them, because if someone did it, that's who.
We have an announcement for our listeners, and I so badly want the podcast episode to end on that note. But we do need to let folks know we've reached the end of season 2.
That is true. Andrea has had an intervention with me. Andrea, the co-host and producer of this show, has had an intervention with me.
That's a real conflict of interest for myself.
But here's the thing. It's actually good news, because she sat me down and said, Marlon, this show is doing well. And we have some really cool guests who are starting to be interested in coming on, that just like the rest, we've had a lot of incredible guests, but a lot of times in the past, we have gone out and asked them to be on the show. But now
they're knocking down our door.
Andrea's saying, hey, we got to take some time and go through who's going to be on the show next, because our listeners deserve the best from us. We're a small team, and we want to make the show as good as it can be, and truly actually helpful and life-changing. And there are could not be more excited. April 30th, 2026 is a Thursday. That is the day that we will drop the first episode of season 3.
Season 3. Really good stuff. In the meantime, keep following us on social media. If you're not following us yet, make sure you do, because we'll still be sharing stuff, clips from things you've never seen, maybe some hints for things that are coming up. We're going to stay busy, for sure.
You want some of that sweet, sweet YouTube content?
That's right.
Then head over to At This Helps Podcast. Check it out. We may or may not be, also planning some live events.
That's right.
So get ready for that. Get excited. I'm excited. You're going to come see us, hopefully.
And genuine actual request. If there are any folks you want to hear Marlon have a conversation with, whose ideas you think you want to hear more from, we are open to suggestions. Send us a message on Instagram. Leave us a review with a suggestion.
You read a good book, good article.
Yes.
If it's something about how our relationships bring us happiness and meaning and help us flourish as human beings, and I mean relationships with other human beings, then put it on our socials. Put it everywhere. We'll read it. And
email me if you want. I don't care. Andrea at thishelpspodcast.com.
Heck yeah.
I'll put it out there.
Look at that. That's a move. Nice.
Let me know.
Well, can't wait to share with you the new episodes, the new guests. And also we need, I feel like over this break, could we get some people on there asking that I know you have a lot of good questions, and I love helping my friend and producer, Andrea, but could we shout out Pacey in the background?
Did you see him follow my hand even though he wasn't? We're psychically linked. Anyway, I'm so sorry to interrupt.
It was important.
Thank you.
Anyone watching the video is going to wonder how your dog is so smart.
We're psychically connected.
That's a different show. I want to help more listeners. So if you want to record a quick video on thishelpspodcast.com
/ask.
And you want to hear what I have to say? I definitely want to hear what you have to say. So
Would love that.
record it. It's quick. It's easy. It just comes right up. Use your webcam and you could be on the show. I might even, if it's a good question, and I'm sure it will be, we might even try to get you on the show live because
Whoa, hey.
I'm trying to meet some of these people leaving all these sweet reviews.
Mm-hmm.
Also, speaking
Leave
of
a
sweet
review.
reviews, I think that's why a lot of people are wanting to be on the show because you are going to. It really does help. Give us that honest 5-star review, and say what you like or don't say anything at all. But those are my suggestions. You could also talk about how I'm begging you to give me these 5-star reviews, and that's something to talk about.
Whatever you want. We just want to hear from you.
Mhm.
And we're going to miss you so much, and we will see you soon.
April 30th.
30th. That's right.
Just before Mental Health Month. Shout out Mental Health Awareness May. Mental Health May. See you then.